Welcome back to the league that means nothing on Go Again Gaming.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the League That Means Nothing. This is Season 4, and we are in our semifinal. Only a couple more matches are left to be played for, you guessed it, absolutely nothing. But nevertheless, it's been a very fun ride. I have to thank Az for having me along for Go Again Gaming's The League That Means Nothing. I have had nothing but a blast casting all of these wonderful games with you, and I'm ready to send it off into the sunset. But before we do that, we have a whiz-bang humdinger of a match coming up between Dash.io and Cindra, Drakai of Blades. I do expect this one to be lickety-split as things go, but I kind of tend to think that this is Cindra's match to lose, namely because she has a very consistent game plan versus the more variance-based one of Dash.io. If the items don't line up in the way that they want, if they end up drawing up a hand of full non-blocking items, I could definitely see that the very consistent game plan of Cindra to kind of carry the day, and off the back of several draws off of Mask of Momentum, and just really high-value cards. Head Jabs, Ravenous Ravels, Oath of Loyalty, you get the gist. This is not one that anyone is going to be surprised about, but what could be very surprising is the iteration that plays out before our very eyes. Before we get into that, I will mention that I am flying solo today. This is the first time I've ever casted a game of Flesh and Blood alone, so please bear with me as I try to schizophrenically separate the two sides of my casting brain. Whatever happens, I'm sure it's going to be fun, and I am looking forward to the challenge. Without much further ado, let's go ahead and head on down to the virtual match floor for our semifinal at the League That Means Nothing. 40 plays 36 here because Sean Papp is on Cindra Drakai of Retribution and Thomas Johnson Averett piloting Dash.io. As we have seen several matches before in this season, Shane Papp was gracing my screen and my wife's in the quarterfinal last week. I was very thankful to have casted his match, although a little bit sad that he ended Acilio's tournament run in that quarterfinal. Coming out swinging, once again, he's on the play, and Shane Papp has already thrown a Rising Resentment and a Pain in the Backside. Flick Knives coming across for the first time this game as Thomas Johnson Averett descends down to 35 after blocking with 2 cards. Already a resource generated by Blood-Splattered Vest and a Kunai of Retribution to follow. Shane showing no signs of stopping, wanting to leak as much damage as humanly possible on this turn 0, probably because he knows that Dash.io can go just as fast, if not faster, than Cindra, given the space. Continuing on with a hot on their heels is Shane. 3 go again on hit mark, but Thomas does not want to have any part in that. A third card comes out on this turn 0. Oh, and the follow-up is Lava Burst. Shane trying to push as much damage as possible, and who can blame him when he sees a hand drawn up like this? Full go-ahead, and a little bit of damage going to leak through here. Thomas Johnson Averett debating about throwing that last card in front of this Lava Burst. I would have to imagine that if it has a block value, it is time to save as much life as possible. And speaking of, I want to take a second to talk about the equipment suite on the Dash.io side of the board. Cogworks Tinkerings plus adaptive plating in the foot slot means that Thomas has elected a more defensive stance, perhaps because he's going second in this case, knows that he's just going to have to stop 1 or 2 of these Mask of Momentum triggers, and if he can do that solely with equipment, then it might just be enough to buy a serious tempo lead in this game. But for now, it is squarely in the hands of Shane Papp, who has a massive life surplus after the start of this game. 40 plays 29 as Shane attempts to pass, and Thomas says, here comes a boom grenade off the top. Here is how I'm going to close this life valley that has put itself before me, between me and victory on turn 0. So finally, priority is fully passed. Thomas Johnson Averett draws up and sees what they can do with an 11-point life deficit and a red boom grenade on offer. Already off to an explosive start is this semifinal match. Boom Grenade loses one of its steam counters, its only steam counter, mind you, as a 0 to 60 in the yellow comes in for 3 go again after banishing a boom grenade off the top. Kind of nice to hit an item early on so that Heist, whenever it rears its head, can have an actual on-hit. All of that damage accepted readily by Shane Papp. He says, I know that this is a race, and I got off to a great start, so what's another 7 damage when I'm already so far ahead? 29 plays 33 now, and Thomas has 3 more cards to answer the turn 0 onslaught of Shane Papp, who still holds back that 4-card hand, only 1 counter on Blood-Splattered Vest so far. Shane has already, by the way, put all of his cards on the table upside down, posturing a little bit like he is going to say, send me the bill time and time again, no matter what Thomas throws his way, which has got to be a scary thing in an aggro mirror. Thomas in the tank for a little bit here, trying to figure out every last point of value that he can generate on offense for all of these cards. You can't blame him. This is going to go fast, but really want these players to take their time as much as humanly possible. And speaking of Heist rearing its ugly head, here it comes. 5 go again after banishing a Fast and Furious off the top. So yellow boom grenade threatening to come back from the banish zone out onto the battlefield. Shane Papp says, I don't care one lick about this on hit. So 5 connects, down to 28 he goes, and yellow boom grenade brought back out into the arena. Does look like it may have been cranked here. 2 counters on Symbiosis Shot and 2 action points on Dash.io, but only 1 card left in the hand. It's a T-Bone coming in for 1 go again out of the hand of Thomas Johnson Everett. Correction there, does seem to be a steam counter on that boom grenade, so 2 action points I don't believe should be represented here, but it's definitely a Symbiosis Shot to follow. Down to 24 goes Shane Papp. Once again, not carrying 1 lick. A little bit of armor bought by Thomas, though, because... Oh, excuse me. Boom Grenade is representing the proper amount of steam counters because another Fast and Furious was boosted by the T-Bone and thereby conferred a steam counter onto it as it hit the banished zone. But now it's back over to Shane, who has blocked with his Dragon Scalar flight path to keep that yellow boom grenade from booming. It's a Ronin Renegade to start, and already we see why 4 cards were kept and no blocks declared by Shane Papp. This is the perfect quintessential Draconic Ninja starter. 3 go again, 2 block, just like your average head jab, but it has the all-important Draconic keyword attached to it. So this chain is off to a roaring start. So far, both of these players not really wanting to do any setup. The arsenals have been empty since the beginning of the game. They just want to throw 4-card hands at each other over and over again. Hot on their heels, the follow-up here. 3 go again, threatening a mark once again. Shane has yet to establish a fealty token. Wasn't able to do so on the previous turn. Turn 0, I might add. Both these players are close to their 50% life totals, even though this game has not elapsed very much time. Cogworks Tinkerings plus Teklo Foundry Heart are the blocks here on hot on their heels, which means a slight overblock, perhaps playing a little bit around Ancestral Empowerment here, is Thomas Johnson. Golden Cog generated there, which means that the Adaptive Plating is at the ready to block an additional 3. This defensive fridge is looking mighty fine for Thomas Johnson Everett. Flick Knives has come across, so this cut through that follows the hot on their heels is going to have 4 go again. Thomas Johnson says, I will not allow this mask trigger, so 2 chain links blocked out simply by equipment at this point, and this is exactly the power of a defensive slanted fridge from Thomas Johnson, but it's all going to be gone after this point, so he's got to put together a fearsome amount of damage with these 4 cards. Finally, a fealty token generated for Shane Papp here. Down to 22 goes his opponent, and a Display Loyalty is the follow-up to the cut through, which thereby makes Cindra's activated ability free. Both daggers bought back from the graveyard, and 1 fealty is on the board for Shane Papp. Really looking good on the ninja side, but the life totals are still fairly even, and that is all thanks to the defensive equipment from Thomas Johnson Everett. Once again, it has been spent, though, so could be a very different story moving forward. He is coming out of the gate swinging, though. Down to 17 goes Shane Papp as he accepts all of the damage from the red 0 to 60 to start off the turn. The follow-up here, Pulse Wave Harpoon, the most disruptive boost attack that Dash.io has at her disposal. Going to force Shane Papp to reveal 2 cards from the hand. If either of them are 2 blocks, Thomas Johnson Navarrete is going to be able to harpoon them straight from the hand and out onto the combat chain. Shane is really hoping that he's got 2-3 blocks in the hand. Doesn't really want to give his opponent an opportunity to take cards from him that would otherwise be more valuable on offense. That is the ninja way, and that is exactly what the mechanologist needs to do in order to get a little more headway in this game. Despite that massive leak, I would say deluge of damage that came through on turn 0, Thomas has bought himself completely back into this game. 2 boom grenades have gone off so far, and down in life is Cindra in the hands of Shane Papp. 22 plays 17. Pulse Wave Harpoon is still on the stack. I do believe I've seen Brand with Cinderclaw and Throw Dagger are the cards revealed. So Thomas Johnson Navarrete can 100% rip the Brand with Cinderclaw out of the hand and onto the combat chain. Looks like he does. 2 more damage going to come through here. Down to 15 will go Shane Papp. And Brand with Cinderclaw, a fantastic starter in its own right. Even better than the traditional one of Ronin Renegade that we saw on the last turn cycle. Another item found off the top for Thomas Johnson. It's a big one too. Teklo Core, going to cost 1 to the Dash.io ability, but going to generate so many resources moving forward. And a second Pulse Wave Harpoon down onto the combat chain. This is not nearly the amount of damage that we can normally see Dash.io spitting out with these boost attacks, but it is ripping the hand of Shane Papp apart, and this is a huge moment in this game. I have to 100% give the edge now to the mechanologist that could Dash.io. Second Pulse Wave Harpoon, likely going to buy the only other Draconic starter out of the hand of Shane Papp, which is, of course, Ignite. Also has the opportunity to hit Demonstrate Devotion or Throw Dagger. I tend to think that the starter is the way to go here because Demonstrate Devotion can only be given go again if a Draconic attack precedes it. That being said, if you take the blue here, does prevent any efficient use of the Kunai of Retribution. Does look like Thomas Johnson is considering things a little bit differently than I was. Demonstrate Devotion is the card harpooned out of the hand, so another 2 damage going to come across here. And the only counter on Symbiosis Shot is going to blast its way into the life total. Down to 11 goes Shane Papp. So far, Symbiosis Shot has done exactly 6 damage in this very short game so far. Thomas Johnson has only had 2 active turns so far. Symbiosis Shot looking absolutely fantastic. There was some discourse after the fabled banning of the books back in the day, where folks were just thinking that Hanabi Blaster was simply correct at that point because you couldn't do the Uzi-like play of High Octane with 5 action points and bang, bang, bang with the Symbiosis Shot. But Thomas making it look like just as good as ever. Ignite plus Kunai of Retribution. So far, the combat chain for Shane Papp. Throw Dagger is going to throw the other Kunai from the equipment zone for Shane Papp, so he is left without any daggers to play with on the rest of this turn. Card drawn, though, because 1 damage was dealt by the Kunai that was flicked. Another resource generated by Blood Splattered Vest, and Ravenous Rabble is the follow-up here. Of course, red found on the top, Ravenous Rabble. And the reason a resource is generated here is because Shane wanted to hedge, just in case he was not able to find a playable card off the top for the Mask of Momentum trigger, or also able to buy back his daggers no matter what. And he does with the final resource there, only had 2 Draconic Chain Links, so it did cost 1. Really clean and safe play by Shane Papp there. So Ravenous Rabble plus 3 mystery cards drawn up for him. It's back over to Thomas. 17 plays 11 after blocking with a maximum velocity. That card really hard to resolve when you aren't able to have the space to set up arsenals. In this case, 2 resources generated off of the Teklo Core at the start of the turn, and T-Bone going to buy a block of the Dragon Scalar Flight Path, which won't actually block any of this damage, but will keep the other all-important equipment slots for Shane's safe. Activation of Teklo Foundry Heart here. Going to bring us down to 1 resource and then up to 3 at the cost of 2 Mechanologist cards off the top of the deck. 17 plays 8. Thomas Johnson could absolutely be threatening lethal here with the 2 cards left in hand and the 3 in the pitch. And that's exactly what he's going to need to do in order to force a response from Shane Papp, who simply doesn't want to. Heist. The follow-up here, 5 go again. In the banished zone are 2 backup protocol reds and a Teklo core. All very fearsome propositions when you're staring down an on-hit like Heist. And if his eyebrows aren't raised yet, Shane has got to raise them there and think about giving some respect. Mask of Momentum may just not be a card that can be too relevant for its triggered ability for the remainder of this game. Shane might have to get through on the old-fashioned way of just threatening head jabs and 4 power attacks with Go Again, but no, 5 damage connects straight away. Down to 3 goes Shane Papp. No respect whatsoever for our brand new Mechanologist from Bright Lights. The choice here for Thomas Johnson Averett is going to depend on what is left in the hand. 1 resource floats from the Teklo Core and Teklo Foundry Heart activation. Can he find something better in the graveyard than what he's got in the hand? Based on the way he's played this turn so far, I want to say that is a 1 cost in the hand. Either that or Teklo Foundry Heart was simply utilized in order to find an item on top. So far, there is not one there. It is just a 0 to 60, I believe, in the yellow. So Thomas, thinking about which item to bring out, the chosen one is backup protocol red. Steam counter on. Will it be cranked, though? No crank is the choice, and zipper hit to follow. Banishing these yellow 0 to 60 on top, and here's yet another breakpoint. Lethal is threatened on this turn. Shane Papp must show respect. But backup protocol red not going to be utilized here. Could be even better on the clapback, especially with the last counter on Teklo Core, essentially making it free. Shane in the tank here, as the league that means nothing could slip through his fingers on this very turn cycle, must choose the exact right card, and it is Lava Burst. Shane is showing us exactly why he was so reticent to block on earlier on these chain links. It's because he wanted to go 4 wide and threaten a 1-card 5. But no, it's both the Lava Burst and Blood Splattered Vest that are bought on the blocks here, and Shane Papp exists only with 1 life point to spare. He's starting off right, though. Rising Resentment, 3 go again. Another one of those fantastic Draconic starters. This turn is going to have to be so big in order to actually threaten Thomas Johnson Averett, and I don't think it's going to get there unless there is a nasty draw on Mask of Momentum. 4 go again here. The card revealed on top is Brand with Cinderclaw. It is in the red, though, so Ravenous Rabble gets only -1. Another 4 accepted readily by Thomas Johnson Averett. Cut through the follow-up here. Currently at 3, but if Shane is hit with a dagger, this combat chain, it'll get +1 and go again. Flick Knives almost assuredly going to be used on this chain link to both keep Mask of Momentum's trigger alive and also give Go Again to cut through. But I tend to think that Thomas Johnson Averett is not going to let this connect. Unless, of course, I suppose Lethal will not be threatened by Shane Papp, no matter what. Because we'll have a total of 5 connect on cut through here. Down to 5 would go Thomas Johnson Averett. And then the follow-up would be Brand with Cinderclaw, only an additional 3. Shane Papp does have the Dragon Scaler Flight Path, piece of equipment normally used on Wrath of Retribution turns. No respect from Thomas Johnson Averett here. Brand with Cinderclaw, the follow-up off the top of the deck. Mask of Momentum will not trigger again this turn, even if Shane was able to go an additional 3 chain links wide. And down to 2 goes Dash.io. Still out of range of a cheeky Flick Knives play on his opponent's turn, which is so important because if Thomas had been forced to go down to 1, Shane could simply block out and hope, as long as no damage came across from -IO. There absolutely could have been a world where Thomas had to pass back to Shane with 1 life left. Shane just sends 1 head jab and flicks for the victory. Not going to be the story of this game, though, as Fast and Furious comes in, boosting a T-Bone off the top. We'll have an additional +1 thanks to the fact that Thomas started his turn off with a cranked backup protocol red. 1 of the 2 on the board are going into the graveyard now at the cost of 2 to find a 0 to 60. More break points are going to spell doom for Shane Papp. I don't see how he gets through this without a miracle. It's Flick Knives plus Throw Dagger. Completely blocked out still, but no more equipment remains. A blue 0 to 60 plus a Pulse Wave Harpoon comes out of the hand. It will be the last boost attack here, but there is a counter on Symbiosis Shot to get this done. 4 go again from Pulse Wave Harpoon. Thomas Johnson taking a look through the graveyard, just making sure that he completely understands what he can get done here. Oh, and there's 2 resources left. Excuse me, folks. T-Bone going to be by the Dragon Scalar Flight Path, blocked with 3 times this turn, but it is simply not going to be enough. T-Bone gonna connect here. And the fist bump is extended in virtual space. Thomas Johnson Averett shows that he can go faster. Steam beats Flame in this match, the semifinal of the League That Means Nothing Season 4. Ladies and gentlemen, did I promise you a humdinger or what? That was so fast. I definitely would have thought that Cindra was enacting the exact game plan that she wanted after leaking a hefty amount of damage on turn 0, but the deck certainly aligned for -IO there, and like I said earlier, it is maybe a more variance-based strategy. You're depending on the top of the deck to cooperate. You're depending on the 4-card hands that you drop to cooperate, but when they do, -IO just seems absolutely unstoppable. And if that is not a lesson in Flesh and Blood, I don't know what is. So stay tuned for the League That Means Nothing. We'll be back with the Season 4 final in short order, but that is going to be it for me in my casting career at the League That Means Nothing, at least for this season. Perhaps I will join you again if Az is so gracious to let me in Season 5. For now, I will say goodbye and good night to my season. Stay happy out there, stay loving Flesh and Blood, and enjoy whatever comes next. Until next time, my name is Bryce Platts, and this, of course, is the League That Means Nothing.